Wondering whether the cameras are on you or not. Okay, we're about to go.
Your specially grilled newspaper spiced with lifestyle, sport, entertainment, politics, business, and international news. The Voice is available every Friday. Subscribe now. The Voice.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Voice of the People with Chief and Fangz. I'm your host, Mr. Fangz, and that's your co-host over there, Mr. Chief.
Oh, what's up, Fangz? How you doing, man?
I'm great. It's a great afternoon, and a great afternoon especially to talk about leadership, isn't it?
Yes. On your favorite debate show, always debating the most pressing issues facing our society today. So what are we talking about today, Mr.
Well,
Fangz?
today we're talking about leadership, right? And this topic comes up in a context where leaders have been implicated in numerous different types of misdemeanors, crimes, from corruption to sexual impropriety over the years in Botswana. These scandals keep coming up, and it's in all sectors, right? In private sector, in political sector, and public sector, we've got these scandals coming up. So we thought today would be a good time to talk about whether or not, what sort of solutions could Botswana come up with to fix these problems. And the solution that Chief supports gompieno e radicale. Solution that thing, he believes that leaders who have been implicated in immoral scandals should be forced to step down. Na ke tla be ke opposa ka hore nna ke feel hore there might be something a little bit softer that we could get into. But Chief, middle ground.
Yes, as usual, we are always interested in hearing your views because, you are the people, we are the voice. So we put a question out today about what do Botswana think about this particular issue.
Exactly.
And they responded. Botswana, they feel very strongly about this particular issue.
Top 10 rod are let's respect women. These people are our mothers, sisters, aunts, and relatives. In some offices, promotions come back up by sex. So, gentlemen, we are humans, evils or animals. We recently heard about this kind of thing whereby one prominent sister of mine holding a high post in the Republic is being used as a sex toy. We know that these things happen each and every day. Respect women more, especially legislators. No organization which respects the rule of law can accommodate this. Mobaneng, if indeed it is true.
Yeah. I mean, very, very clear, very strong opinion there. He feels like generally this has undertones of disrespect to women.
Yeah.
And when these leaders do this and then nothing happens, it just seems like it's a disrespectful thing.
Indeed. Me a kere discussion ya rona gompieno e bua mo goreng while this person has not yet been proved guilty in court. Go santse go investigate you, I get.
Yes.
Gore go tsaya kgato efe.
Okay.
I kere go clear gore after I'm not guilty, ha le gore guilty go court o tso go a tronkong. But before then, before we know whether or not they're guilty or innocent, what should we do? A rutla gore ka bo ga boeme a reng.
Ka bo ga boeme a re ko mahatseng a serious e seng Banana Republic ha ke zo ra Banana Republic e ka the leader ka boene o tshwanetse go tsenya resignation letter ASAP jaanong kwano setse dilo di dirilwe norm ke mapolitiki ya Botswana go maragaraga hela. That is coming from Karabo Gabwemi, and yeah, I mean, on some level I agree with him, but I'll say that in my speech. Generally, it seems like in other countries, go to Europe, go at democracy, these type of things they don't stand for. So why is it that Rounding we seem to just be tolerant of some of these things,
I don't know if it's tolerance, but I'll read one more comment. And it's simple, it's fast and clear. Cabo Moroba are yes, it must be a law forcing them. So the people, we are the voice. The people are agreeing with your voice, Chief. Why don't you take it away and let us hear?
Okay, firstly, I'd like to thank the people who agreed with me. hore ha motho a implicatilwe mo di-scandaling tse di tshwanang le tse re tshwanang re di butlalla as the leadership, should they step aside, right? And unequivocally, I'm going to say yes, right? Because look, whether or not this person has been found guilty or not, I think that's not really the issue here. I think what's important here is the implication on the leader. And the reason why it's important that they step aside is because the leader sets the tone for the organization, Fangz. Mo football team. That's why Captain has to lead from the front. You get what I mean? Because he creates that attitude, that aura of respectability. He creates an example of how a leader is supposed to carry themselves, right? The dangers of when an organization starts to blindly follow a corrupt leader. The tendency leader may start to creep into the organization. Because as you know, Fangz, they mimic what their leadership does, right? And that's what my point is, that leadership is at that tone for organization. So just like we've seen how, in some countries that have been known to be very corrupt, corruption is straight from the top. You get what I mean? So in the same way, when it comes to the sexual scandal, all of these things, it starts from the top, because people then, if you do nothing, they think that it's okay, and then it can start to become the norm. You know what I mean? But secondly, here's another really important issue why they need to be removed. Guilty, in particular, right? But what we're saying is that he has the ability to influence whatever investigation is taking place. You get what I mean? Because that's the nature of the leader, is that they understand how the organization works. Gather evidence. There's issues of witness intimidation, things like that. So when you hold that office, there's too much that comes with it that'll allow you to have your way and possibly even interfere with the investigation. So completely, you need to be removed so that people can investigate you. We've seen this happen. Recently, not recently, but some years back, with the head of the International Monetary Fund, Dominic Strauss-Kahn. He was implicated in a sexual scandal, and within, I think, a day or two of the news breaking, he resigns because he realizes this thing could put my organization as well into credibility. There's so many other examples of there's many more examples about that. We'll get to that later, right? But here's the third, and I feel like the most important issue, especially for Botswana, especially when it comes to issues that involve rape and sexual crimes, right? Because we've had this debate before a few weeks ago. Maybe we must take drastic measures against people who perpetrate sexual crimes, right? But the reason why it's important is because our statistics about GBV and rape are shocking.
They're bad.
Right?
They're bad.
They're really, really bad. We are like a rape nation. So part of these type of measures, you are setting a tone, just generally as a country, okay, this is the type of behavior we will tolerate, this is the type of behavior we won't. Not only are you setting a tone as a country, but you're setting a tone for the leaders in the future. You're holding them to the highest standard. These are the type of leaders we want from now on. We want leaders they're going to be morally upright, they're going to have integrity, they're going to be able to stand and deliver on and practice what they preach. We are no longer going to stand for these leaders, they say one thing, make their own things, right? So generally, look, that's where we stand. A very strong tone needs to be set. And these people just need to step aside so that we investigate possibly they've been found innocent, maybe then they can come back. But while these implications are happening, they need to just step aside, Mr. Fangz.
Okay, I think I heard your argument, and you argued it very eloquently there, Chief. I think there's, once again, this is exactly what a number of the commenters are saying as well. I'll just read one more out here. Star Macy Capes are in Botswana, that's how they climb the ladder. After scandal, they get promoted. Look where Majaha and Molale are, right? So now, I mean, I don't want to implicate any people, right? Any specific people, right? But it is interesting what you're saying. And some of the points that you make, that's taking a stand against sexual assault. That is a real thing that I think every Motswana should care about. And in fact, we're going to have a special guest today.
Yes.
Ms Pusetso Morapedi from the Botswana Centre for Public Integrity, who will talk to us about exactly this, matters of public integrity, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
It'll be interesting to engage with her. But I'd just like to respond to some of your ideas, Chief.
Okay, fine.
Right? Because the main points that you make, they're important. Mare, I think that the way that you ended up, or let's say, Kori, oh boy, had lots of shot left. You needed to like continue the journey. So the first thing, we need to take a stand against sexual assault, and we do need to do that. It is really problematic if people who are guilty of sexual crimes are in influential positions. The problem is and I'll get into this more, but the problem is we mustn't be reactive to it. Like there's something, we want to do something, now we do anything. No, we need to be strategic about how we react. And that means we mustn't weaponize this thing, right? Just because we want to make a stand against sexual assault doesn't mean that we must weaponize the idea of making a stand and then start creating a whole new problem, which that can lead to. Secondly, this idea, you can influence investigations. A lot of people can intimidate witnesses and so on. But I mean, a lot of the time, if we're talking about crimes like this, the examples you've given, such sexual crimes, you're talking about police officers investigating here, people that have much more power than, a CEO or whatever in regard to providing protection for witnesses, in order to be able to provide the security that a witness needs in order to come clean, right? I don't think that's a problem. And I think really, if there's that level of intimidation, then you've got a problem across an entire board, and it's not one individual that is able to wield that kind of power, right? Like Strauss-Kahn that you're talking about, Mr. Dominic Strauss-Kahn, he ended up being found innocent. And that's the crux of my issue today. After all of this, after he was forced to resign, after his name was dragged through the mud, after all of these scandals, all charges ended up being dropped. There wasn't enough evidence in order to create an investigation, or to create proper charges against him. And then theories started coming out about how actually this was all trumped up to sabotage his potential run for presidential elections. So this is where we're going back to this idea that it's possible to weaponize, right, this idea of scandals around people, especially around public figures, right? The easiest way to harm a public figure is to create a scandal around them. The easiest way to create a scandal is to insinuate that something happened between just two people, right, where there's very little evidence, but you go to newspapers, and then all of a sudden now, because we've got a law that says if your name is even implicated, regardless whether or not you're guilty or innocent, you have to lose your job. And now this person who's providing a livelihood for their family now no longer can provide that livelihood for their family. But no, it's okay. We move on with life, right? So I think there's a problem. This is what I mean about how we can't be reactive about the way that we respond to these things, Chief. We have to be strategic and be smart and make sure that the things that we're attacking, the problems that we're solving, are real problems and aren't creating new problems, right? The final thing that I wanted to say is with regard to what you're saying about how a leader embodies an organization. You're absolutely right, Chief, in a lot of situations. But usually you have a PR officer that deals with public relations and embodying the organization. A leader's job is to get results. That person got to the top of that organization because they're able to produce results better than anyone else. When you take them from that position because of rumors that are unfounded before you have any real evidence, any real credibility to them, then you're harming that organization. You're harming that person, that person's family, and everyone else that depends on that person and on that organization. And then it turns out, like in Dominic Strauss-Kahn's case, that person's innocent. How do you repair that harm? Right?
Hey, Mr. Fangz, as usual, we did the interesting tota. I especially liked where you're going with this idea of weaponizing a scandal.
Yes.
Because part of the debate that was coming up when these things happen is maybe that other person implicated is part of a bigger conspiracy to bring down this individual. And because there was only two people, but before we bring in Pusetso, we're going to bring in Pusetso from Botswana Centre for Public Integrity just now to give us her views on this issue. I just want to read a couple of the comments that are streaming in now while the show is ongoing, because we run this show live. So there's a very interesting comment here from Peg Gar, right? And Peg Gar seems to agree with me. Surprise, surprise. On point. Leaders set a tone for an organization, and people are highly likely to be precedented what he does or his behavior likely to cause conflicts and discomforts in that particular organization. However, apologies may counteract these kind of acts. In the case of Clinton le Monica, you see,
because they resign, they lose their jobs. That Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton scandal, he ended up keeping his job. He retired, left his presidency with the highest ratings of any president after the Cold War. You know what I mean?
What does that say about him? It's not a good thing. But imagine Bill Clinton had been removed from office when
you know what I mean?
That scandal. But even though we did find out that he was guilty. Yeah. So on the phone, we'd like to bring in Pusetso to just chip in on this issue and represent her organization, because they deal with public integrity and how people generally who are in the public sphere should behave. So Pusetso, are you there?
Hi, good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers and your followers. Quite interesting discussions indeed. I mean, we look at public integrity, and public integrity looks at consistently adhering to shared principles and shared norms. Now, the question is, when it comes to leadership in Botswana, what are our shared norms? What are our shared rules? What are our shared values? Our leaders must adhere to. What are those? So when we talk about misconduct, just or maybe something is wrong from, say, from the church point of view, from the human rights point of view, from the cultural relativism point of view. What are our shared values when it comes to our leadership? So we have ethical leaders, we have moral leaders, which code of conduct? Because until we clear that out, then it becomes a little bit murky. This particular leader has, acted this way, and therefore it must not be, taken. They must resign or not. So when it comes to what has been happening with sexual misconduct in our country, what are the values we have cultivated and that we uphold and that we hold against our leaders in our political parties, in our institutions, in our companies? These things are just happening in political parties and in politics. We've heard allegations of someone who's being used. Must we really be dealing with these things in this day and age? And what does this say about our society? What does it say about our culture? How have we allowed a particular misconduct to embed and entrench itself in our society to a point where if at all it has happened, now we are even debating. There's a debate instead of just saying, no, you resign. Until you are proven guilty while we're investigating, because you are a log in our eye, for now, maybe Emma Nama Hale. Because we have a shared value that you have broken. We have a contract with you as a leader that you have broken. Until we can satisfy ourselves using against certain codes, certain rules, certain principles, certain values, until we are satisfied that your conduct did not contravene those. Nama o emehale. It should be a shared value. E le hore rona Batswana re itiretse, re ipetse. Re lebeletse gone gore the core leadership values tsa rona ke eng. Tse di important thing, tse di guidang gore batho ba ba mo maemong a rileng ba itsaya jang ebile ba acta jang le bana ba rona, for example, le batsadi ba rona, for example, with their own peers and their own colleagues. Kharetsa issue ya ethical leadership. We're looking at issues of honesty, integrity you mentioned earlier, and empathy. We're looking at service, at respect, at vision. The question is, the leaders who usually find themselves embroiled in sexual misconduct, where is integrity in that? What is the vision for your leadership? Is the vision to go around sleeping with young girls? Is the vision to go around sleeping with young boys? Where is respect for yourself and for your family? If at all now we're going to bring the argument that people are being accused and then they have to some lose their jobs and their reputation, marred in I guess in dark waters. The question is, as a leader, you know very well in politics that there is weaponization of conduct or of misconduct. Why would you want to put yourself in a position where people can use your conduct as a weapon against you? When you know sometimes some of these things are actually just politics 101, scandal 101, fixer 101. Why would you want to have yourself embroiled in some of these things when you know very well what power dynamics can do and what they can lead to? If your family is of high importance, then act like your family is important. If your company is of high importance, then act like it. Bring and remind yourself consistently adhere to the shared values that make you an ethical leader and that make you a person, a woman and a man who respects his or her family, who has got a vision for his or her family and also the area of work they are in. Be honest in your service. And stop to abuse your power by tapping into some young women or young men's vulnerabilities when it comes to maybe their socioeconomic status, when it comes to maybe their empowerment, be it being empowered intellectually, physically, or even economically. Our leaders need to set the tone, but our leaders sometimes need help from us as citizens to uphold certain values, like for them to actually adhere to on a daily basis. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Pusetso, from the Botswana Centre for Public Integrity. Please follow their page, like them on Facebook. And she gave some very, very insightful contributions.
Indeed.
There. Very, very insightful contributions, and I'd just like to reiterate them. One of the questions she asked is, do we have shared values as leadership?
Exactly.
And what are our shared values? Because, as a leader, there's an implicit contract, like a silent contract that you engage in with the people, that you're going to be this morally upright guy.
Person,
and when you do these things, are you not now breaking that contract? So what are our shared values?
I mean, it's an interesting one because it's about to what extent do the leader's personal morals and moral standards, or their own moral compass rather, to what point is that relevant and applicable to the job that we want them to perform as our leader?
But now
You know
that's
what I mean?
the debate.
Yeah,
Fangz.
exactly.
For me, it's very important for a leader because we want somebody or it's in hori represent that in the most you know
where
and
I have
just before you say that, she mentioned also something else that is directly clashing with what you're saying about weaponizing scandals, right? As a leader, you must know that people may want to bring you down, people may want to cast doubt on your name, so they could weaponize scandals. So at all times when we you know what, my family or her could be implicated. Like she asked the question, where was the thinking of your family when you are now engaged in some potentially dodgy behavior?
Fair enough. So now you see, these are the things, right? So if you were to ask me, do I really care if the CEO of the company that like I bought shares from is having an extramarital affair that's consensual? I honestly don't. As long as that guy is able to be really good at at running that bank, I don't think it's in any way relevant to it. And these are some of the problems, you see, because it's to what extent is that person's personal morality relevant to the job that we want them to perform?
It's relevant because you can't tie yourself away from the fact that a leader who influence about.
So
they are the influencers.
But that's my thing.
So now when I had a leader who feel you can just willy-nilly cheat on your wife, do all of these things, how do you think your followers are going to they're going to think that's okay behavior?
So I mean, that's entirely a subjective moral judgment, right? Whether or not you choose to have sex with a bunch of people or just one person, the reason it's not a crime, Chief, is because it's entirely up to you. We shouldn't be the moral arbiters of other people. You know what I mean? All that should matter is, does it affect your ability to perform your job? Does it compromise your ability to perform your job? That's the most. If I'm a shareholder at Barclays, ABSA, I really don't care what the CEO is doing in his personal time.
It does compromise their ability to do their job because now nakile shareholder
and then when your stock share price increases, when your dividends are coming in, is that the guy you want to fire so that the next guy comes in and he loses you money?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, I hear you. Let's give a couple of other viewers a chance. We'd like to give a special shout out to one of our loyal followers who's always dropping a comment.
Yes.
That is Tidaga, God Peace, Godfrey, right?
Yes.
Always Tidaga, shout out to you. Ari, of course can. I think of course yes, because we need clean leadership. And go on a point there thing. When it comes to leadership, and I gotta get out things. Generally, when as an individual you should be able to do what you want. But when it comes to leadership, it's important that Batova hold a higher standard than everyone else because the responsibility is one.
Let me ask you a question.
Clean leadership.
Let me ask you a question then, Chief.
Hey.
That leader for something that is completely unrelated to their job performance, that isn't a crime, right? They end up being found innocent of whatever allegations, and now the organization that they were responsible for leading is tanking. Its performance is poor because the person that's running it now does not have the same capacity to run it. Now what?
Now they deserve to tank because they were being run by somebody who was IMMORAL.
So like, you're not producing a problem. Like, your solution is like, let's get rid of all our leaders because they're not angels. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, nobody's an angel. Even
let's just get rid of the ones who are.
I'll give you an example.
Another
example. Nelson Mandela was implicated in a number of sexual scandals, but he also was responsible for leading the black struggle and leading people out of apartheid. So what? We shouldn't recognize him? He must not, he should have been kicked out of that?
Yeah,
Mandela
holds a special place in all of our hearts.
This is what I mean, Chief.
Let's leave
It's
him
about
right
performance. As long as he did the job that the people wanted him to do, which is liberating the black people from the struggle, nobody cares that he may have had a second wife. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know about that. But my final thought on this issue before we wrap up is that, as leaders, And first of all, before I give my final thought, thank you again to Pusetso Morapedi from the Botswana Centre for Public Integrity.
Thank you very
for
much.
sharing their views. They're an organization that deals with public integrity. Check them out. They are upstanding, morally upstanding citizens. So yeah, my last word on this whole issue is that as a leader, we hold you to a special place because you're not like the rest of us. You're somebody who we consider is going to have better morals because that leads to better decision making. So for example, if a decision is put on your table where you have to weigh up against your personal interests versus the interests of your people, because of your track record of being a shady individual, when it comes to you making decisions in our best interest. So that's what I'm saying, Fangz. And we also need to set a tone about the type of leadership we want. The organization until the right leadership comes along.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I suppose I agree with a lot of what you said, right? Despite myself, I do agree with the fact that there needs to be some sort of moral standard for the people that we hold up in society, right? Because you are more than just, who you are. A lot of the time you embody the organization. You are an idol. People look forward to you. They bring you in to give speeches about being a leader and other things. So you're more than just yourself. I totally understand that, and I agree that there needs to be a moral standard to that. But I also think that it's important to recognize that people are innocent before they're proven guilty. And the reason that the law works that way is to ensure that everyone is treated fairly, that it is not easy to basically lynch people, whether it's metaphorical public lynching in the newspapers, right, or actual lynching. It's not possible to lynch people just because you felt like it, or because we don't like that person, or because that person is unpopular. That there needs to be a process that is taken in order to find out whether or not this person indeed did violate standards that we've set, and then make sure that you punish them if that is required accordingly. But to just say that everyone must just resign because there's a scandal around them, I think we need to be a little bit more mature than that, right? And that's my final thought.
Can I just read one more comment, man? There's a comment that just came in from Lolo Solomon. They should step down because they were caught. Yes. Kankuluki image. If wa jola. We fire you. And I think that just generally sets the tone. And that's it for this week on The Voice of the People with Chief Fangz. As usual, we would love to hear your views. You can continue the discussion. Check out our YouTube page where we archive all of our past debates. Just go on YouTube, search for The Voice of the People with Chief Fangz, and get in touch with us, man. What issues do you guys want us to hear discussing, because we are always very interested to hear what the people want to talk about.
You are the people. We try to be your voice. Join us every week. We're going to be here. Thank you very much.
We know what you're looking for.
Your specially grilled newspaper, spiced with lifestyle, sport, entertainment, politics, business, and international news. The Voice is available every Friday. Subscribe now. The Voice.